The quote that you see on your screens is not hyperbole from a backroom deal. It's straight from the mouth of Jamieson Greer, the United States Trade Representative, dropping this bombshell during a Senate Appropriations Subcommittee hearing on December 10, 2025. Arun, welcome to this episode of Deep Dive on NewsX with me, Uday Pratap Singh. Today, we're decoding what the U.S. is saying on the trade deal in a week when President Donald Trump is rattling sabers with fresh tariff threats on everything from Canadian fertilizer to Indian rice. Greer's words cut through the noise like a lifeline. But what does the best ever really mean for the world's two largest democracies? Well, two-way trade between India and the U.S. is currently around $190 to $200 billion a year. Both Prime Minister Modi and President Trump have repeatedly set a public target of $500 billion by 2030. To get there, the two sides launched formal negotiations for a bilateral trade agreement in February 2025.
As many of you are aware, both of our governments are hard at work on a trade agreement built on shared priorities, like creating new jobs, building durable supply chains, and achieving prosperity for our workers. In our meeting yesterday, Prime Minister Modi and I made very good progress on all of those points. And we are especially excited to formally announce that America and India have officially finalized the terms of reference for the trade negotiation. I think this is a vital step.
Right now, on December 10th and 11th, the high-level U.S. delegation is in New Delhi for the latest round, led by Deputy USTR Rick Switzer and Assistant USTR Brendan Lynch. They are meeting India's Commerce Secretary Rajesh Agarwal and Joint Secretary Darpan Jain, with Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal likely joining at some point. Jamieson Greer told U.S. Senators three big things today. First, on agriculture. Historically, the toughest chapter India has tabled, what he called the best offer we've ever received. He specifically praised new market access for American grain sorghum, soybeans and corn and soy-based ethanol. Greer said India has been quite forward-leaning, a diplomatic way of saying New Delhi is finally dropping some of its highest farm tariffs and sanitary barriers. Second, talks on civil aircraft parts are fairly far advanced. Under a 1979 agreement, both sides are moving towards zero tariffs on Boeing and other aviation components, a major win for U.S. manufacturers and for India's growing aircraft maintenance and assembly sector. Third, Greer placed the entire negotiation in a bigger picture. The U.S. is deliberately shifting farm and energy exports away from China towards reliable partners like India and Southeast Asia. He noted that India is now further along in these talks than at any point in previous administrations. Praise from Greer, but the pressure hasn't let up. The U.S. has already imposed an extra 26% penalty tariff on many Indian exports because of India's continued purchase of discounted Russian crude. Just yesterday, President Trump again threatened new tariffs on Indian rice, repeating claims of dumping. India strongly rejects that charge, pointing out it only exports premium basmati varieties and that current U.S. duties are already over 50%.
I'm delighted to announce this afternoon that the United States will be taking a small portion of the hundreds of billions of dollars we receive in tariffs. We are making a lot of money from countries that took advantage of us for years. They took advantage of us like nobody's ever seen. Our deficits are way down because of tariffs. I guess because of the election, because without the election you wouldn't have tariffs. You'd be sitting here losing your shirt. But we're taking in billions. We're really taking in trillions of dollars, if you think about it, Scott, because the real numbers, when you think of all the money being poured into the country for new auto plants and all of the other things, AI. So what we're doing is we're taking a relatively small portion of that.
From New Delhi's side, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal said today that talks are continuously progressing and that both countries are working towards a framework agreement this year. Indian officials stress they need to protect millions of small farmers from sudden import surges. That remains the red line. Listen in to the Commerce Minister.
गत दिनों में कई सारे देशों के मंत्रियों का भारत की तरफ आना हुआ। मेरे भी कई दौरे रहे अलग अलग देशों में, क्योंकि आज पूरा विश्व देख रहा है कि प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के निर्णायक नेतृत्व के साथ साथ एक मजबूत लोकतंत्र, 140 करोड़ भारतवासियों का कौशल्य, 140 करोड़ भारतवासियों का युवा देश जो ऊर्जा के साथ भी बढ़ा है, आशा अपेक्षा के साथ देश में डिमांड भी क्रिएट कर रहा है और विश्व की सबसे तेज गति से बढ़ती हुई अर्थव्यवस्था भारत आज विश्व का आकर्षण का केंद्र बनी है। व्यापार हो, निवेश हो, टैलेंट हो, आखिर 24 लाख हमारे साइंस और टेक्नोलॉजी, मैथमेटिक्स, इंजीनियरिंग के ग्रेजुएट्स हर साल सिर्फ भारत ही बना सकते हैं।
Ambassador Manju Seth, former diplomat, is joining us now live on the broadcast. Ambassador Seth, how important are these negotiations currently in New Delhi with this US team, of course, in India to take discussions forward?
Look at what has been happening. Good evening. I'm happy to be here and on this interesting conversation because, the way that the talks have progressed up and down, back and forth, with some, which is also normal in negotiations. There are some headway, then there are setbacks. And that's what's happening throughout when we look at the bilateral negotiations. And right now, even just yesterday, President Trump has again tried to put some pressure over rice exports from India. So I think right now that the team is here and they're discussing to find a solution to both the tariffs and a long-term framework for bilateral trade. I think this is very important and significant also, given our fairly good relationship over the years. Of course, except on the trade front, I think the rest of the relationship is progressing quite well. And I think we've had good negotiations, as the minister also said, good negotiations, fruitful negotiations, but eventually it has to be a mutually win-win, mutually beneficial outcome that comes out of all these negotiations.
Well, the US side... Yes, the US side also is hinting now towards certain concessions. What do you believe are the biggest stumbling blocks currently to finalizing of this deal?
I think one of the main, as you're aware, is the agricultural sector that they want us to open up completely to US exports, dairy and agricultural products. I think that is something which is a very deep, dark red line for India because it affects small farmers. It doesn't affect industry or huge or bigger, sort of entities. And that, I think, is one of the biggest stumbling blocks because whatever the US is not looking at anybody else's perspective, they're looking only at their perspective, their dairy farmers, their agricultural sector, and how to increase its exports. Because I was reading somewhere that also China has put some restrictions on agricultural exports from the US. And so they are looking at diversifying and diversifying the export markets and looking at India because they believe that the US has unfairly been targeted by India, which I think is not the case, but we don't allow from any country. This agricultural sector has been in all our recent trade deals and earlier trade deals also. That is one sector that we have not opened up to other countries. So I think the US understands but doesn't want to understand because they want to ensure that their products just get in here. And rightly so, we are looking at our interests, they are looking at their interests. And we are looking at our interests because we feel that our small farmers, medium farmers will be affected, small dairy owners. And so now today, their Senate, the trade representative, trade chief has said to a Senate committee that, or in the Senate, that India has given the best ever offer, so which is a plus point, and that's how the negotiations normally proceed. We make some concessions, and they will come up with some concessions, and we will find a mutually beneficial outcome.
Okay. By when do you believe a final agreement could be finally signed and announced, Ambassador Seth?
I think on tariffs, we might have agreement early. I believe by the end of the year they are targeting, but maybe latest by early next year, I think, because both sides are committed to achieving it. And that, I think, is a plus point. And it should be feasible. But the long-term agreement might take longer. But on the tariffs, because I think also at the same time, parallelly, if you see there might be a pause in the Russia-Ukraine war, the way the negotiations are going on. But both sides are now, both that is Russia and Kyiv, Ukraine are both not showing much flexibility, but it looks like there might be some peace outcome. And once that happens, I think the additional 25% tariffs might be removed. And if this negotiation is also, it is concluded, the first phase, I think we will be able to, both things together, we might find some closure and some agreement by the end of the year, because we've said we will allow sorghum and soya meal and soya seeds to be, grains to be brought into India, and the tariffs will be cut on that. So I think that is a plus point, because I think this decision or this offer may have been made only after due consideration of what is required in our market,
right,
how it affects our farmers and
okay,
the agriculture.
All right, Ambassador Say, thank you very much for joining us with your perspective on that story.